All right. Good luck, everyone.
Yay.
You're going to do great.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Kelsey Steinrau, Senior Project Manager on the Movement Communications team at the Wikimedia Foundation. Today, on our last day of Wikimania, we'll be talking about the future. Wikimania 2021, this year's Wikimania, was new and different in so many ways. It began with a completely new design process makeover. It was led by a global core organizing team and took place for the first time ever in an entirely virtual format. On today's panel, we're going to look ahead, as best we can, into what lies ahead for 2022 and beyond. While we won't be making any decisions today, we will reflect on some of the current thinking among Wikimania organizers, as well as volunteers who shared their thoughts in our 3 unconference spaces over the past several days. With me today, I have my teammate, Senior Events Strategist, Joelle Latang. We will begin our discussion with a short overview by Joelle of the revamped design process created for Wikimania this year. After that, I will introduce our 3 panelists, all current and former Wikimania organizers, who will reflect on 2 overarching themes: a future virtual format of Wikimania, and how we might select host groups for future Wikimanias. After that, we'll get to your questions from the Etherpad. With that, Joelle, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Kelsey. Don't know if I just cut off, so I'm just going to repeat that. Designing for a virtual Wikimania, just like an in-person one, was a big challenge, but a virtual one even more so. So why? Because we couldn't just emulate the exact in-person experience virtually. Everybody knows you can't have the exact same elements of an in-person event online. So how do you design for this? How do we cater to our diverse and international community? How do we make sure everybody has the space to not only connect with one another, but exchange learnings? It is a challenge, but at the very start of this process, we engaged many volunteers in the movement, mainly the steering committee, who has been involved in the design of a virtual Wikimania. It was not only the steering committee, but we did work with a whole bunch of groups within the movement to get to where we are today. I will shortly share a link of the event design process, which was the precursor of getting us here. You can read a little bit more in the summary of what this event design process actually entailed. But in short, we looked at our we looked at our main participants of Wikimania and really honed in on how we can design for those. I'm a bit of an event design nerd, so I'm not going to bore you with event design. But if you want to talk more about it, I'm happy to make myself available to you to ask questions. But for now, I will share in a little bit the meta page link to the event design process, where you can read up. But before passing it on to our fantastic 3 panelists, I am not sure what's going. Am I still here? Okay.
You are. Yep. Slight glitch.
Thank you. I'm gonna hand the word over to our panelists because, as I said, I'm a bit of an event design nerd, and I'm not going to bore you with that now. This session is really talking about the future of Wikimania. So, without any further ado, handing it over to Kelsey.
Yeah, I'll
There
just
we go.
quick intros for the panelists. So I'll let the panelists begin by introducing themselves. We'll do Phoebe, and then Yaman, and then Douglas.
Hi, everyone. You've seen my face a couple times at Wikimania. My name is Phoebe Ayers. I am the vice chair of the Wikimania Steering Committee, which is a group of past organizers of various years of Wikimania. And I have had a hand in organizing several 2006, 2012, and others to a lesser extent. So glad to have this session. Douglas, do you want to introduce yourself?
I think Yaman is next. So,
Yaman, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Phoebe. So happy to be here. My name is Yaman. I am a member of the core organizing team for this virtual Wikimania. I am from Tunisia, the Wikimedia Tunisia, and another user group, Wiki World Heritage User Group, and also a regional conference, Wiki Arabia Conference. And I'm happy here to discuss the future of Wikimania with this amazing panel. Over to you, Douglas.
Thank you, Yaman. So my name is Douglas Scott. I was the lead organizer, or the organizing lead, for Wikimania 2018 in Cape Town, South Africa. I was also one of the co-organizers for the first Wiki in Daba in Johannesburg way back in 2014. I was president of Wikimedia South Africa from 2015 to 2020. And in my day job, I'm a criminologist.
Thanks, all three of you, so much for joining. I want to start off by asking each of you to reflect on the topic of the future format of Wikimania. As we know, the future of what will be possible in terms of in-person convenings is still unknown. And there was a recent consensus reached by the steering committee, which reads, "Our current thinking is to have a virtual Wikimania in 2022, and we are open to a hybrid approach or in real life aspects that are justified given developing global situations." Phoebe, given that you're on the steering committee, can you start off by sharing more of the thinking behind this statement? And then Douglas and Yaman can take the discussion from there.
Sure, thanks. And I apologize for having my video off, everyone. It kept freezing earlier. So I wanted to try and keep it down. So we know how special Wikimania is. Everyone in the steering committee loves this conference. We have all been a big part of it. And we've heard from the community how much Wikimania means to people, and especially in-person Wikimanias. It's a really magical experience. It's how many of us got our start in the Wikimedia universe, or got more involved in governance, or, getting more involved in building up our local affiliates. So we all agree the in-person conference is special. We also all agree that the state of the world vis-a-vis COVID is very uncertain right now. And it's difficult or possibly impossible to plan for an in-person event in good faith while the pandemic is still going. There are also advantages to an online conference that I think we're all sort of discovering together right now, which are people can join who have never been before. I've talked to many first-time attendees this year. People can join in their time zone, which is never possible at a single in-person event where somebody is always extremely jet-lagged, right? We're all acutely aware of the climate crisis, and not flying people around the world seems like a good thing to try and achieve. Better translation support, more participation, talks in non-English languages. All of that are potential advantages to the online. So, so our statement, recognizing that we will have an online conference next year. We want to leave the door open to also having regional or local or to be determined in-person events in places where that will work, right? In communities and geographies where the pandemic is lessened, where there's not as a risk, because we don't know what the state of the world will look like. I was watching the general chat earlier today and saw lots of comments about how hybrid events can be very dicey in terms of participation and knowing, what is happening. I think that is also true. And so I think collectively we have to imagine how to do this well and what we want out of a Wikimania, which will take participation from, all of you, as well as the people who step up to organize next year's conference. Just one more thing, and then I'll pass it on to everyone for their perspective. This year was also very special in that we asked for volunteers for a global organizing team. So instead of one geographic host, like we typically have, Douglas, you in South Africa, or the Canadians in Montreal, et cetera. We asked for a global organizing committee because this conference comes from all of us, for all of us. And I think we will do that again next year, and we will need help, lots and lots and lots of help. So look for that call to participate. Wikimania is great because you can really take a big hand in it and make it what you want. So I'll leave it off there and turn it over to any of my co-panelists, or if we have questions, I'm happy to take those. Douglas?
Thank you, Phoebe. I first want to say that I think you really hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the benefits of hosting an online Wikimania. It's more democratic. People can more easily join from all over the world. It's better for the environment. You're not taking thousands or hundreds of flights from across the world and putting CO2 in the atmosphere. And there are a host of other benefits as well. You can attend events in your time zone, etc. However, there are challenges. And I just want to take a step back quickly and say that hosting a hybrid event, a successful hybrid event, at least since I've been aware of the process of hosting Wikimedia, has always been kind of for lack of a better term, a holy grail for hosting a Wikimania, right? We've always wanted to host an event which includes people digitally as well as in the physical space. And I suppose in the past, we never had the pressure to really focus and invest in the digital space, and because we were very focused on making the physical sort of the event happening in whichever locale it's happening in a real success to really try and get that right. And this is the first time when we've sort of really, I suppose, been compelled to host an entirely online event, and so really see what it's like to host an online event, an online Wikimania. And in addition to the benefits, this does highlight a number of challenges, and I suppose this is part of why it's been quite an elusive quest to host an event that is as personable as say a normal conference, because it is quite tough networking and connecting with people, catching up with people, doing the kind of community health activities that is an important part of Wikimania. It's quite tough to do that online and digitally, meeting new people. So that's I think going to be a challenge, continue to be a challenge, is to try and figure that problem out. And I think this year, and I really got to hand it to the event organizers this year, they did a fantastic job. But there's these challenges, and they've come a long way in addressing these challenges, but these challenges still remain somewhat. And I think that'll take more experimentation moving forward.
Yaman, do you have any thoughts on the future format of Wikimania, or especially how we can make a virtual format, if that is indeed the direction that we're going, as successful as possible?
Thank you, Kelsey. Yes, indeed. I think that after this virtual edition, we can find a lot of things that we can take for the next editions. So from the first meetings of the co-organizing team, we said that this edition should be the most accessible and the most inclusive one. And I think with what we offered as available platform and translation, and also by removing all the other obstacles to attend Wikimedia, I think we succeed to make that. We can see the number of registered people and the attendees from all over the world, the session in different languages, and so on. So I think there is a lot of things that we can take from this edition to the next ones. And indeed, we can think about hybrid ones, so where we can have physical people and at the same time people joining online, benefiting from on-demand pre-recorded content, from translation. So I think this is feasible and we have to think about it seriously.
Definitely. So another additional question. At the unconference table over the last few days, we've heard from volunteers quite a bit, and one consistent theme is the importance of Wikimania continuing to nurture a sense of community and connection. And so I'm curious, maybe we'll start with you, Douglas. From what I've heard, Wikimania Cape Town was really successful at this. What lessons can we take that might be replicable in a virtual arena?
Gosh, that's a tricky question. Thank you. It's good to know it was successful at that. And I suppose I want to sort of preference my answer by saying that to me, Wikimania is very important because it not only does it allow us to share information with each other as a community, but also, and I think more importantly to me personally, it enhances community health. It allows us to connect with other people in our community, meet new people, create new connections, create new friendships and new partnerships, and learn about what people are doing. And I think the one thing we seem to be doing quite well at Wikimania, and the digital ones especially, is the presentations, that knowledge sharing. But the one thing which I think we've got to it's more of a challenge to overcome in a digital setting, is creating the informal spaces that allow for that kind of community health strengthening, that kind of networking, that kind of informal social gatherings to thrive in. That's why I still like the hybrid model a lot, because I really like the democracy that having it on board digitally encourages. It's very democratic, very accessible, and it's good for the environment. But on the other hand, we still need to figure out how to create these informal spaces to allow people to connect with each other, to meet new people, and build that stronger sense of community. I don't know what the answer is. I think maybe part of the answer is to go into organizing every Wikimania with this in mind, that an important part of Wikimania is the development and strengthening of community health, maintenance and strengthening community health. And I think secondarily would be Wikimania is very good for giving our community sort of unity of vision, clarity of vision, and unity of mission, sort of rallying us around a particular theme or cause. But number one, definitely community health.
Yeah, thanks, Douglas. I would jump in here and totally agree with that. If the purpose of Wikimania is to, meet each other and, get refreshed for those of us who have been around for a long time, and meet new people, and for newer people to get, connected to ongoing projects, Wikimania is super special for that. And I want to acknowledge from, both from the steering committee, but as individuals, the online conference format is not as good for that in many ways, because it's hard. It's hard to meet people the same way that you would meet people in a courtyard or meet people over dinner or something. so I think we have a long ways to go in making an online, really the online conference of our dreams, right? And, like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of trade-offs, and we want in-person Wikimania. So, I just think it's really hard, and I am very interested in, and I think this is an area of feedback where the organizing committee and steering committee wants your feedback. I'm very interested in the experience for new people, in particular, joining Wikimania. Have you been able to, meet people in this online format? Have you been able to, make any of those connections? That's something we really want to know. But.
Yes,
yes, I agree with Phoebe that Wikimania is very important to be, to be on a physical space. That's why for the next edition, for this year, we didn't have a choice. So that's why it was virtual. But for next year's, it can be hybrid, or we can find a solution. People still talking about, for example, the impact that, for example, Wikimedia is Xenolario on them. After 6 years, they're still talking about this Wikimania. Personally, also, still have, Wikimania, the first Wikimania that I attended in London, 2014, has a great impact on me, as it was the first edition. During this Wikimania, I met Douglas and many other amazing people. I was able to meet the Arabic community and to present the regional conference Wikimedia for the first time. So it's very important to be gathered physically. So I hope that for the next edition we can have this kind of physical hybrid, because also there is advantage for online as well. Not all people can travel there is visa issues. So maybe having this hybrid format can be beneficial for all the Wikimedians all over the world.
Yeah, and I suspect the devil's going to kind of be in the detail of hosting successful hybrid events. So we kind of know overall what works, but it's like the little things, like how do you make it easier so that the people online can do sort of behind the scenes socializing with people who are offline? So how do the people online do that just as well as the people who are offline physically in the space? Those kind of challenges we're gonna need to do some experimentation to figure out.
I'd actually be curious to hear a little bit more, Yamin, as a member of the core organizing team, how did you think about these challenges for this year, right? Making an experience that was really welcoming for newcomers and that strengthened community health. And lastly, maybe any reflections about parts of that worked really well and parts of that we need to keep tinkering with?
So it's not an easy challenge. So, Wikimania is very important for all the Wikimedians. It's the main events that we are looking for it every year. And organizing it for the first time online, it was very challenging. But what is good that we found ourselves with an amazing core team, supported by wonderful staff and a wonderful steering committee that helped us to go through all the steps, and also the volunteer who joined us also during the review of the session reviews and during the Wikimania days as well. So, and I would like to say thank you for all the people who helped us to make this event happen. It's very challenging because it's not like meeting physically, so you have to. Communication can be more straightforward. Trust and safety issues also can be more easy to handle. So there is many challenge with this virtual edition.
Phoebe and Douglas, any observations from this year? Things you'd keep working on?
So one of the things I would keep is a platform, whether it's Remo or some other platform, to allow people to attend the overall conference digitally. So in previously before this Wikimania, we would just stream individual presentations sort of live. And it's nice to have one platform where you can sort of attend the conference broadly. That I would keep even if we have a hybrid model. And I think that seems pretty obvious to me. Challenges, I mean, I've really highlighted some of the challenges with that. How do we cross the barrier between people who are physically there and people who choose to attend digitally? That I think is going to be a key challenge for, especially when it comes to socializing.
Yeah, I think good things. Again, having presentations available, afterwards for rewatching, recording. We have struggled with every single in-person Wikimania to date with getting everything recorded and available. And so that is a huge benefit to doing it online. I think, again, having translation support, time zone support, having things at different times of day around the world, and having supporting presentations in different languages, also a huge benefit. I would do that again. I think we could have done more of that. Honestly, I think places where, I would want to improve include even more advertising, because we're not, in the sense of promoting the conference and getting the word out to join the conference, because I think we're not as limited online as we have been in person historically by money, space, resources, etc. I hear the people who want an open platform. We support open software in this community. This is a proprietary platform. We need to do better. Again, it's always a balancing act of trying to find something that works and can be supported, and that we can get spun up in time for the conference. But going more and more open in terms of platform would be great. I've heard comments about better closed captioning. That should be, something that would be easy to do on our videos, more accessibility for sure. And, I think we've made a progress in starting language support, but we could do more. There's no reason this conference can't be super globally multilingual. And so things I would keep, things I would do better. I am loving some of the chat channels and Telegram and the chat in Remo, but not everyone are in those spaces. So again, promotion, thinking about better technology. But I am just, I've had conversations today with people who it's their first Wikimania, and people who wouldn't have been able to come to Wikimania. And that is really special. I'm really happy about that part. So, but I will say, maybe you're about to say this, Kelsey, but this is a good time, I think, to advertise that, of course, we will ask for feedback after the end of this conference. We've got a feedback form that's going out, but also, I think in the moment, it's easy to say, okay, this was broken and this other thing was broken and this third thing was broken. But also, I want feedback that helps us imagine how to do better too. Like, what does a great conference look like? And we can work towards that. Please do, give us your feedback, but also participate in that ongoing conversation on the Wikimania mailing lists, on the wiki, and when we make a call for volunteers for next year as well.
Phoebe, I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for the plug for feedback, and we will be sending around a survey soon, in addition to all of the other channels that you mentioned. Let's go ahead and switch gears to our second theme for today, which is host selection. So this year we did things a bit differently without a geographic host. Yaman, can you start by telling us a little bit more about how the core organizing team was formed, and specifically what the role of the COT was in this Wikimania?
Yes, Kelsey. So as you know, the core organizing team is composed of volunteers. They have been selected from all over the world. So we have from Africa, Asia, South America, North America, Europe, so from many countries. Personally, I was monitoring very closely updates about the next Wikimania. And when I saw the call for volunteers, I didn't hesitate to fill the form. And so I find myself with in an amazing core team. supported, of course, by the wonderful staff from the foundation and an awesome steering committee members. So yeah, it's very, I mean, I think it's very good also this kind of diversity within the core team. So to have people from different regions, from with different experience. So maybe with this, this can be also one of the things that we can do for the next editions, to have diversity, organizing team, I mean, from different regions and different cultural backgrounds. And just after regarding the feedback, so just to add something. So yes, after we are going to have send feedback for participants, and I think that we have a lot of things to learn from this edition. It's the first edition online, first Wikimania virtual Wikimania, and I think that there is a lot of things that we can learn. I'm sure that we will publish the lessons learned from this edition to improve the next edition that we can organize, whether either virtually or in a hybrid format.
Definitely. So one thing we heard in the unconference space was that if we do have virtual Wikimanias in the future, there are more opportunities to rethink how we do site selection. And the way that we did the core organizing team this year is just one option. Other ideas shared in the unconference included, for example, having non-geographic hosts. So I'm curious from all of you, what are some other ways that we could play around with host selection and format?
Well, I mean, I will not answer your question immediately, but for the people who haven't been a part of the process, I'll give a micro history of host selection for Wikimania. The very first year was a group of people. There were actually two groups of people, and there was a little discussion about what city it would be best to host the conference in Germany. But, they volunteered. They're like, it would be great to have an international conference. Starting in the second year, we moved to this geographic bidding system. And for several years after that, we had fairly in-depth bids. So community groups would, who wanted to host the conference in their geography would say, we want to host the conference in our geography, but also here's a whole proposal about how we will do this. Here's the location and the team that could run it and the infrastructure that we have and the local sponsors, the town or whatever who are willing to sponsor us. That was great. It was a lot of work from the bidding teams, though, often for bids that didn't become a conference, which is disappointing. So then we moved to this kind of lighter weight system where, areas could express interest, but then, we would think about where we wanted to go geographically in the world and where would work for a Wikimania, given lots of concerns about visas and flights and travel and everything else. And then work with that team to create a proposal. What does online bidding look like for an all online conference? That is a great question. Yeah, I would like to see, because we don't have geographic constraints in an online world, I would like to see, many more proposals from language communities, from project communities. We have, of course, all our sister projects and, that, often put forward talk proposals. But so I don't know, Yaman and Douglas, I'm curious about your thoughts. I'm curious about thoughts in the Etherpad too, but I think there's a lot of proposals, and very often, I saw some discussion in the Etherpad about the unconference spaces and how that's a shame that the unconference space closed. I agree entirely. We need to fix that for next year, find a better open platform. But also, how do we work these kind of organic conversations into the kind of main presentation of Wikimania? That's what I think about too. So
I want to agree with what Phoebe just said here. The first thing that came to mind was It gives thematic communities and linguistic communities an opportunity to put themselves forward to host the event around a theme, because the logistics as well as the geographical requirements sort of aren't. They're just not important in an online Wikimania. But I suppose one limiting factor to that is that that role of giving thematic groups and I suppose linguistic groups so the ability to host an event is partly already covered by regional conferences or conferences that focus on thematic groups. I think one thing I think it would still be a thing, but I think one prospect for judging applicants to host a Wikimania in a digital space, which I would certainly be interested to see, is different visions. So people are bidding to host it based on different visions on how to carry out a Wikimania. So by visions, I mean like, what is the core theme of the event going to be? Like what are we all going to encourage people to talk about? We can't tell people to talk about things. We can only encourage people to talk about things or think about things. Or it could be a presentation on how we are going to encourage people to meet new people or do community group activities or build community health. So it gives us a way to sort of experiment with different ways to host an online Wikimania. This is assuming, of course, that we go with a purely online Wikimania instead of sort of a hybrid model in the future. I do want to say that I can attest to Phoebe's to what she said previously about it, the old process being sort of quite heavy on the bid committee. I mean, Wikimedia Cape Town, we had four unsuccessful bids before we were finally successful in 2018, and each bid is a lot of work.
Well, yeah, especially because those bids were very heavily focused on the logistics, right? Like, like we would have bids. I mean, one of the things that we needed to know to host a conference is there a place to do it? Is there Wi-Fi in that place? Can we get food in that place? Is there housing for participants, and so on and so forth? And so there's all these physical logistics considerations that go into making an in-person conference that are really the heart of the matter for the local organizers, and really don't have anything to do with the program or the talks or any of the content that participants interact with. So one crazy idea, which we have not, this is not from the committee as a formal proposal, but I see lots of talk about, different platforms, different ways of doing an online conference. I would encourage maybe not a bid, but a proposal, a package proposal for like, how could we put on an online conference next year? In the same way that we might say, what if we went to a youth hostel, a university campus, an Olympic village, etc. I think we can think of online infrastructure in a similar way. We need proposals and help. So.
Yes, well said, Phoebe. I agree with you. I mean, if we are going to think about the next editions, I think it's very important to have this kind of diversified organizing team from different communities. Wikimania belongs to Wikimedians, and they should be involved in the co-organization of this event, this big event. And I agree that we don't have to go to the previous process of bidding. I mean, it's a lot of energy for local communities to do the bid, and sometimes it's a lot of deception also when they are not selected. And as Phoebe said, we can select sites. It can be, for example, a World Heritage site, for example, cultural site that we can visit and take advantage of the situation and organize a hybrid or even a virtual Wikimania. So we can do that.
We've had one relevant question from the Etherpad that I'll go ahead and share, and it is, given the move towards some geographic hubs and other decentralization planned for the movement, could these structures be used to create physical conference hubs that don't require as much travel? It will mean that local languages can be supported and main sessions can be attended virtually from these satellite locations.
I think this model can, correspond to the hybrid format that we can think about. For example, having a physical conference in a geographical hub, at the same time an online event for other people who can't attend to go to these regions. Actually, currently we do have a lot of regional conference, Wiki Indaba, Wiki Arabia, Wiki Convention for the Francophone world. So there is a lot of regional conference, and I think they have to coexist with Wikimania. So we need to have Wikimania every year. So, but I think the regional hub can coexist, can correspond to the hybrid format. It can be very good with the hybrid format.
Yeah, I'd agree with Yaman there. It seems to be the best fit for a hybrid format, the regional hubs.
All right, well, we've got just a few minutes left. And so one thing I want to do, when we think about the importance of Wikimania as a source of community health and connection and helping newcomers feel more a part of the movement, I'd love to hear from each of you just a quick summary. Excuse me. What's your best pitch about why newcomers should join Wikimania and be part of helping to organize it? What were some of the best parts, the highlights of your experience? Maybe a couple caveats, but really let's use this space to help convince newcomers to join organizing Wikimania. Let's hear from each of you.
I can start. So the best space for adding newcomers, or for newcomers to join, for organizing purposes, is what you're asking about. Yeah. So there's several communication venues. There is primarily a mailing list, Wikimania L, which everyone should please feel free to join. It's not a lot of traffic, but there are Wikimania announcements there. And I think that's the place where probably the most people are to have conversations. Following on with that, there's also a couple of Telegram groups for people who are in Telegram. Our movement seems to have migrated to Telegram as a conversation venue. Wikimania chat is the biggest one. It tends to be active just around the conference itself, but it certainly exists and continue to exist. And then, there's the wikis themselves as well. And I think the Wikimania wiki continues every year. It gets transformed into the wiki for the next conference, but it exists in between times. And I think we can spin up some discussion venues there. I also think, we need to do a better job of hosting sort of open discussions and community discussion spaces to talk. So, and I want to acknowledge from my colleagues from the COT, from the steering committee, we're not universally agreed on exactly what to do at all moments. It's very hard. There are some people who really dislike the online conference format and want us to get back to an in-person conference service as soon as possible. But again, it's always a balance of where, balancing lots of different elements to try and make a good event that hits lots of high points. So those are the discussion venues. I welcome ideas for better discussion venues, but those are the core ones. Douglas and Yemen, things to add to that?
Yes, I will start. So Wikimania is very important for Wikimedians. So editing Wikipedia it's an online activity. So sometimes you will feel yourself alone. You try to find a community to join, but Wikimania can be the opportunity to meet Wikimedians from all over the world. You can listen to sessions from diversified topics, learn a lot from it. As I said, the first Wikimania I attended it has a big impact on myself and as a Wikimedian. And I still believe that physical conferences can be very important to meet each other. I mean, I met my future wife during a wiki conference, so I cannot say that it's not very important. So, so Wikimania has to be every year. We have to keep Wikimania running every year. It's very important for Wikimedian to attend it, to learn a lot. But they can learn a lot of things from it. And so this year we didn't have a choice, so it was online. But if we have the possibility to do something different next year, hybrid, so let's do it.
So I agree with what everyone said so far about the importance of attending Wikimania. I mean, and sort of want to add to that and say that the one thing I really got from attending, and this is certainly the first Wikimania I attended, and it's been reinforced by every other Wikimania since then, is the sense that I got of being part of a bigger project, right? So before then, I'd been a Wikipedia editor for a number of years, but I'd never gone to a Wikimania until 2011. And when I went to Wikimania in 2011, my first one, I really got a feeling like I wasn't just on my own. Like I felt like it was really being a part of a bigger team, of a bigger group who I felt sort of a real connection with and really wanted to help and participate with. And I suppose that leads me into why would you want to host a Wikimania? And part of that is it's a very rewarding feeling giving back to a community that you feel sort of so affectionately towards, right? And you feel so invested in. And hosting Wikimania is I suppose one of the gives you a very strong feeling of that kind of giving back, the rewarding feeling of giving back. There's an element of civic pride, or civic pride to it as well. You know, you want people to see your city. If you're hosting a physical Wikimania, and a digital one, I'm sure there are other elements as well that could also motivate a person. Things like what's the conversation starter that you know I can suggest to encourage people to think about at a Wikimania that might push the movement forward. But I mean, like even thinking about like what that question might be requires a lot of discussion amongst Wikimedians, so that you know you're on the right track. But yeah, I'd have to say the strongest for me is the sense of I suppose giving back.
Let's close with one final question then to each of you. What has been your favorite moment of Wikimania 2021?
My favorite moment, well, there are two really. One was, I mean, other than seeing old friends again in a long time, is definitely always a good thing. So but other than that, the two for me would be experimenting with or experiencing for the first time what a truly online conference could be like, and that's very insightful. And the second one is sort of helping out with the going to the National Gallery, filming sort of the National Gallery here in South Africa to show at this year's Wikimania, and that was great fun.
For me, I think it was the announcement of the Wikimedian of the Year. So very good Wikimedian have been selected this year, and Ala is one of the best Wikimedian that I met, so he deserved the title for this year. I was very happy to hear his name.
Yes, that was a really wonderful moment. I don't know if I have a single moment. I have to say I'm enjoying going to sessions this year, which I often don't do at a Wikimania. I often never make it past the lobby. So it's been great to, as I know is true for many of us. So it's been great to hear talks this year, and it really, you know, I'm always blown away by the creativity and breadth of our community. It's also been nice to see all the chats and, you know, people's names going by, some of whom I know, some of whom I don't. I just want to end by saying before we end, you know, I have huge respect and thanks for everyone on the steering committee, the core organizing team, and the Wikimedia staff. The people in those groups, it's all volunteers on the core organizing team and in the steering committee, have put in so much time and so much effort and so much care for this conference. We really, really do care about it. And so I just want to thank all of my colleagues and everyone who's put together this conference. You know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of discussion and thought and talking and planning went into this event. And so, you know, I know that it is not perfect and I know that it is not ideal, but I'm also so glad that, you know, everyone has spent this time and is working on it and investing in it. Our community is really, really special that way. So, thanks to all of you. I feel bad being the kind of only voice from the steering committee up here, but I think I can speak for all of us in thanking all of the organizers and all of the volunteers for putting this conference on.
That's so beautifully put, Phoebe, plus 1,000. And thank you so much for that. All right, I'd like to thank our three panelists, Yamin, Douglas, and Phoebe, for joining today, and to everyone who joined us live and who's watching the video later. I look forward to seeing you all at Wikimania 2022.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.